Well, hello, folks out there in YouTube land. Got a big show lined up for you today. Let's get into it. Oh, yeah. We're going to go over two things today. The real reason that Nick retired, and he has sort of spilled the beans a little bit. Also, we got a big SEC title game tonight, the big game. And Tennessee is out for vengeance after what happened to us earlier this year.
And I will have my vengeance in this life or the next.
Yeah, Tennessee's not going to be sitting back. They got beat by 4 points at Thompson-Boling, which doesn't happen. And South Carolina, you know, they're standing in Tennessee's way of an SEC title by themselves. But South Carolina has an opportunity for an SEC title themselves to share it, or maybe even win it outright, depending on how it plays out these last two games. So we're going to get into all this. Let's start out with Nick Saban. And this is all over the news. It says, Nick Saban, the way Alabama players reacted after the Rose Bowl loss contributed to the decision to retire. It talks about he was not thrilled with the way his team reacted to losing the Rose Bowl. That was a tough game to lose. It really was. In overtime, I got a bad snap, and that sort of threw Milroe off a little bit. He wound up just running straight forward. I think had he gotten a good solid snap, that would have helped him. But, you know, you can't blame it all on one little thing. But that was a heck of a ball game. It really was, and a very tough loss. And it would appear to me Alabama probably would have won a national title. I think he would have still retired after that, because I think they would have beat Washington, but that's neither here nor there. Michigan won. They can sort of thank Connor Stallions, too, for that. He helped out a little bit. But, yeah, they talked about how he took off the end zone with a low snap, and it was supposed to be a run-pass option, but once the snap was low, he had pretty much just took off. It said Saban told ESPN the way some of his players on his team acted immediately after the loss and in the ensuing days contributed to his decision to hang it up after 2023. And here's where he's quoted. He said, "I want to be clear that wasn't the reason, but some of those events certainly contributed." Saban said of his decision to retire, "I was really disappointed in the way the players acted after the game. You got to win with class. You got to lose with class. We had our opportunities to win the game. We didn't do it. And then showing your ass and being frustrated and throwing helmets and doing that stuff, that's not who we are and what we've promoted in our program." Now we're going to get into the real reason he retired, because I still think there's gas in the tank, but I think NIL, transfer portal, and all the changes have driven him nuts, and it's made coaching in college football very difficult. You're seeing coach after coach leaving for the NFL or getting out, or even a coach that went from head coach to offensive coordinator because he just didn't want to do it anymore. He wanted to be happy. And it's probably hard to be happy when you're constantly recruiting, constantly in the portal, constantly trying to figure out how much money these kids want to come to the program. And here he talks about that. He talked about how the college football landscape is changing, influence his decision. He estimated maybe 70 to 80% of the players you talked to wanted to know about their playing time in the upcoming season and how much they would be making in NIL money.
Jerry, you better yell! Show me the money! Show me the money!
That's what it was. It was those two things. And it's, you know, look, the guy's, what, 70 years old, 71? And he's probably like, look, I don't want to be out on the road 24/7. I don't want to have to re-recruit kids I just recruited to get them to come. And now I got to re-recruit them again and then again. And it's every semester pretty much you've got to recruit them. And that's really hard on a guy that's been doing it a certain way for years and years. And it was just too much for him. And he thought, you know, I've got all this money. I've won everything you can win multiple times. It's time for me to get out. And that's what he did. And probably not winning that game and then them showing their butts. That probably was the final straw. I could certainly see that with him because, you know, look, he likes to do things his way. And his way is, like I say, winning with class, losing with class, I guess. And it was probably just all those things piling up on him. And it's not going to get any better. I'll just go ahead and tell you over the next few years, well, Dalton, just tell him.
It'll get worse before it gets better.
Yeah, he's right. And you can always count on Dalton. He'll tell you the straight up.
Roadhouse.
All right, now we got to get into the big game. And by the way, I'm going to go live and do a pregame. Let me show you this. I've never done this before. I've never done a pre-show for a basketball game, but this is such a big one that I just felt like, what the heck? I'm going to get in there and see what I can do. So I will be going live tonight at 6 o'clock, so be sure to check that out if you'd like. And this is a huge game. This is a monster game. You've got the revenge factor. It's for all the marbles. If Tennessee wins this game, they win the SEC outright, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Here's the team overall record, and Tennessee's 13-3, and South Carolina being 12-4. If they beat South Carolina, that gives them their 5th loss. So no matter what happens after that, Tennessee wins this game. They win the SEC outright because Alabama got boat raced last night by Florida. I don't know if y'all saw that ball game, but that was brutal. And Mark Sears did everything he could for Alabama. He scored 33 points, 29 of which came in the second half. He just went down and scored and scored and scored. They never got any closer. It seemed like every time I looked up, they were down 20 points. Florida just kept scoring, And they beat them 105 to like 85 or whatever it was, 105-87. And they were never in the game the entire second half. It's almost like Tennessee just took their will to play out of them. They were a very different team. Their energy was terrible. Their defense was terrible, giving up 105 points to Florida. And they really, I just don't think they felt they had anything to play for after they lost that big game. ESPN Game Day came down there to Alabama, and they had everybody and their brother was in that gymnasium rooting for Alabama. And Tennessee just somehow beat them pretty soundly by 7 points. So, too bad for Alabama. I was really wanting them to win both SEC titles, football and basketball. So anyway, we took that out of them. You got to take your victories where you can. And this game tonight's going to be very important for both teams. I got to give South Carolina credit. We beat them like a dog last year. We beat them by 44 points and 40 points. It's the worst drubbing any team in the SEC has ever taken from another SEC team. And they came up to Thompson Bowling this year, and I was like, oh, well, we're going to have a little scrimmage here. We'll beat them by 20. We'll just play around with them. They're tough. They mucked up the game. They got in there and turned it into a big scrum, played really good defense. We couldn't shoot for crap. We couldn't hit our free throws. It was one of the most frustrating games I've ever watched. The entire time I thought, when are we going to take this game over and just beat these guys? They're tough. They'll play you. And they've got a couple of good, solid players in there, too, that you got to deal with. And this fella right here, Meechie Johnson, is their best scorer, and he's very difficult to deal with. They've got another guard that's real solid, B.J. Mack. Then they've got a good rebounder. This guy's like 230 pounds, and that's Murray Boyles. So they've got some good, solid players, and they play really good defense. And they're very physical in the middle, and they'll push you around, and they'll lean against you. And Tennessee's going to have to deal with that. Now, I think both these teams are better than they were last time they faced each other. I think Carolina's better, and I know Tennessee's better. They have been playing great recently. I think they've won 6 straight games. South Carolina's won 3. Yeah, you can see that right there. South Carolina's on a 3-game win streak. Tennessee's on a 6-game win streak. And look here at Kentucky. They're coming up. They've won 3 straight, and that's pretty typical of a Kentucky team. They usually start out really slow with all those 5-star freshmen, and then they start getting their legs under them and start realizing how to play team basketball, and they start getting better towards the end of the year. So we still got to play them one more time at Thompson Bowling, fortunately. We whooped them up there at Rupp Arena. We scored 1,000,000 points against them, which they don't have a very good defense. That will be the opposite in this game tonight. South Carolina has a very good defense. This is not going to be a high-scoring game. This could be in the 60s or 70s, which doesn't bode well typically for Tennessee. We want to score in the 80s, but this is a game we're favored by 5.5 points. I feel like we should win this game. It's going to be crazy there, but you know what? It was crazy at Rupp Arena. It was crazy at Alabama. We won both those games. And, of course, we beat Auburn as well, which was a tough game. Granted, that was at home. I'd like to see Dalton play well in this game. He actually played good in the South Carolina game the first time, but nobody else did. Hopefully he'll play well and our other guys will show up like they did against Bama. We had several guys that were just key. And this is a huge game for South Carolina. They have a chance to win a part of the SEC title. They could even win it all by themselves if things went perfectly for them last 2 games. So this is huge for South Carolina. That place is going to be on fire. It will be sold out, of course, and it's going to be loud as crap. But it's not going to be any louder than it was at Alabama. There's no way. It'll probably be equal. Oh, and there's a #1 seed on the line for us, too. If we win this game, we're going to be solid #1 going into the NCAA tournament, which would be really good. I think we just bested out Arizona. But, you know, if we lose this game, we could fall down to a 2 position, which is still not terrible. But, you know, you'd like to go in as a 1. It just makes things easier as you go forward. So I did want to cover this, talk about Nick Saban a little bit, and, of course, the SEC title game. This is exciting. I'm fired up. I tell you, I'm almost as fired up about this basketball game as I get about football, and that's saying something. I'm usually a notch below that with basketball, even though I really enjoy it. This has got me pumped up. That Alabama game and that Auburn game has got me fired up about this team. This is a special team, and we need to go down into Carolina and win this ball game and take that SEC title, and it'll be ours. We'll have really earned it, especially, you know, it'd be 7 wins in a row. This is big, and I'm kind of proud of South Carolina a little bit for being so tough this year, and they're going to have the coach of the year and the most improved team by far, but I will not mind beating them at all if we can pull it off. If they beat us, it's going to suck. Just is. That's another reason why it's such an exciting game, is that there are major stakes in this game. Not as bad as there was at Alabama. That was big stakes. But this is just about equal, really. It's, you know, it's for all the marbles. So if you like this content, be sure to hit that like button. Be sure to show up tonight at 6 o'clock for the pre-show. And if you've not subscribed, it's on your right, my left. Hit this little button. I'd appreciate it. Costs you not a dime. Helps me out. And right over here is the most recent video. YouTube thinks you'll enjoy. And we'll see you next time on Sports Talk Jay, or we'll see you tonight.